So now we're going to have our media panel for the day. So please join me in welcoming our panelists to the stage. So I don't know if, Sam, you want to kick off for us here?
You got it. Sam Bloom, I am with PMG. I lead our partnerships.
Excellent. My name is Gina Waldhorn. I'm the former Chief Marketing Officer of Sports Innovation Lab, now SVP of Marketing and Advertising at Genius Sports.
Hi all, Erick Estrada, VP of Product and Measurement for Publicis Media within Publicis Sports.
Great. Like one of the topics today has obviously been streaming, the fragmentation of sports rights moving from linear to digital. Erick, can you maybe just walk us through how Publicis' approach to planning for that shift in environment has evolved within the agency?
Yeah, great question. I think we've all experienced kind of different platforms, and we're trying to keep track of our own logins within Netflix and Prime and all those things too. So we hear kind of the challenges. We kind of caught it early on. And within Publicis Group, we've kind of developed a way to kind of really look at the migration from linear to OTT, CTV, and addressable TV as well too. So what we've done is kind of create a unified currency to kind of address this kind of shift. And what we've done is also kind of create bespoke integrations with our distribution partners to help navigate whether investments go to certain platforms too. So within that kind of, we call it Lift within Publicis Group, and within Lift, it helps us kind of determine where these investments better lie. So within those platforms there.
Interesting. And then Sam, obviously with TV rights, sports in particular, moving to digital, that creates a whole new opportunity around targeted advertising. Can you maybe just talk about how bringing precision targeting into the buying practices within the agency has evolved over time as you're now buying more sort of digital and streaming ad content?
You got it. Well, so the heart of our agency is our platform alley. And what I sort of say, when you think about media buying, there's planning, there's execution, and then of course there's measurement. And now with things like FanHub, it's a process all the way through for us. Yeah. So when you think first is every brand has fans. They have their own consumers, and of course, that they're connected to sports in some way, shape, or form. So first is uncovering those insights. The second piece is then being able to activate, upon that data. And when you think about traditional ad platforms, it's almost impossible to connect in the moment. Particularly what you were talking about, those moments in a match or a game, for a Nike, for example, when LeBron breaks, a record or something along those lines, like being able to do something with that kind of precision for a Nike, really important. And then being able to bring measurement to that, to be able to connect those moments to outcomes for clients, huge. So it's literally across the board for us.
Yeah, excellent, really interesting. And it's interesting you touched on that. So on the product side of things, and Gina, I know we spoke a lot about this during the process of Genius acquiring Sports Innovation Lab with yourself and Josh Walker and Angela, the co-CEOs. One of the interesting things that we learned through that process was how we had this shared vision of measurement, right, in sports. And it's always one of the biggest challenges, is particularly in sort of sponsorship. And we've got this opportunity now where more sports is turning digital, and that essentially drives a massive shift in sort of sponsorship measurement and just measurement in sports advertising in general. Can you maybe just talk about like how you think how that is evolving, right, in terms of the combination of something like a FanHub ID with sports data and what it unlocks?
Absolutely. So I think what's fascinating is this isn't new to brands and agencies and advertisers. A lot of this precision, performance-based, rigorous ad technology has existed in retail media, as you mentioned, in e-com, and even CPG, right? These are advanced, precision-based performance targeting that exists in other industries that had not been brought to sports. Sports was kind of looked at as emotional, brand building. We'd love some measurement, but that's not really why we're doing it. But as the industry has evolved and Genius Sports, and Sports Innovation Lab brought this technology to sports, now, as you say, we can add a whole new layer of attribution, of ROI measurement to truly understand and evaluate sports media against other traditional digital media channels. And so we're welcoming in a whole new host of brands who either maybe kind of stepped away from sports because they were missing that precision, accuracy, and targeting. And for those legacy brands who spend hundreds of millions on these sponsorships, we're now unlocking a new level of attribution and measurement for them that can continue to help them, optimize the deployment of their sponsorship portfolio into sports.
Interesting. And so I might just come back to you, Sam, briefly. Like one of the things that I know we've talked about a lot is the shift in your clients and how they are becoming more and more interested in sports. I think one of the conversations we had at one point was that sort of brands historically thought they needed to make a big bang moment in order to enter the space, right? And that is shifting. Can you maybe just talk through how you're seeing that evolution with your partners?
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality of it is that not every, when you think about the broadcast, buyers of TV, it's, 300 to 500 brands that are basically, advertise on, national TV in some way, shape, or form. And so when you think about advertising as a whole, not every brand, when you think about brands, they don't all have national presence. Mm-hmm. When you think about the penetration of those customers. So now we have platforms like FanHub that'll enable us to, basically action on sports in the places against the fans, in the places that are most important to those brands. And so, when you think about digital consumption, when you think about TV consumption, it's it's usually the diehard fans, but fandom is a much broader thing. Mm. And so we've been able to use those insights to be able to activate fans in the places where they consume sports. And some of it is the broadcast, yes, but oftentimes, more often than not, it's digital. Yeah. And that is extremely important. And then for many of these brands, they're very outcome focused. And so as Gina mentioned, one of the things that is really impressive about the data set, it's sort of like having Google Analytics for the real world. So if you have a retailer or a QSR brand and you're trying to measure your association, or your ads, with a particular sports team or IP or an athlete, to be able to connect that to an outcome is wild. And it's enabled a lot more brands to jump in because they see it no different than they see, their Meta and their Google and their other platforms that they're used to seeing those kinds of outcomes.
Yeah, great. And speaking of sort of data and tracking outcomes, Erick, obviously Publicis has Epsilon, right?
Yep.
And that is sort of the core for the agency in terms of data and understanding. Can you maybe just sort of talk through how you're leveraging multiple data sets from partners like Genius in that environment to drive outcomes for your partners?
Yeah, super important for us. As Gina mentioned, there was enough data, but enough wasn't enough for us. We wanted to expand on that. So within Epsilon, we combine different attributes and data sources to give us an idea of behaviors, preferences, and what we were missing a lot more was that fan dynamic, not only what they understood, but what their behavior was before, during, or afterwards as well too, which is why this unique combination of Epsilon and Genius Sports data gives us a unique advantage to support our clients. We want to, in the future, kind of help understand for our clients how fans feel, right, during the game or after the game. I'm a Jets fan, I lose a lot, but what has happened, or what I eventually want to recognize is, how do I feel when I lose, and how our brands can react to that. Usually when I lose, I try to order some food, and you might not see it, but hopefully other fans kind of divulge in different ways. But those are things that we want to help understand so that we can help our brands target the real fan itself a little bit more. So that's kind of how we're using Epsilon and kind of the unique partnership that we have with Genius to help kind of activate a little bit more. But not only kind of reach the fan, also kind of look forward, right? We always want to, I think the goal was try to attack the fan of kind of where they are, but let's attack the fan of where they're going, and that's kind of what we want to try to reach.
Yeah. Jets fans are an easy segment for us. They don't move around much.
Yeah, we're
sort of very static.
We're there. We'll stay there. Sooner or later, we'll flip it around.
Going next, we talked about local sort of advertising this. And one of the things that we've talked about today is our relationships with FanDuel Sports Network and NBC for this new sort of set of augmented inventory for 600 games. Can you maybe sort of just talk through, I know we've done some work together on augmentation, maybe touch on particularly around how your partners are reacting when they see that as this new format, and what does sort of the local, the ability to network loads of local content together and bringing that into the sports fandom?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, one is, what's crazy is it's enabling, an entirely new set of inventory. I think it's the first piece, and I think that's huge. I think the ability to localize, customize, personalize, that has huge implications. Because with fandom, it really, you have to speak to the fan in an individual way. And to Erick's point, talk to a Cowboys fan is very different than talking to a Jets fan, even though we're equally as disappointed. But I think, when you speak to people in that common language of love around sports, it has, an amazing impact. And particularly, what I'd sort of say is it translates over just about anything. I mean, sports really is the lingua franca, and it's also one of the few things in our media business that still has water cooler talk. And so it's the thing that connects us, but it's also the thing that motivates us and drives us.
Yeah, right. And from the technology side of things, right? Like Genius is really driving a path here with Genius IQ and the mesh data that it unlocks, right? And we've talked a lot about it today. You've seen the experience when you came in of sort of what it looks and feels like, and we're obviously laying this roadwork, this sort of pathway, this foundation, right, for this future where video becomes indistinguishable from the broadcast, right, and graphics ultimately meet to the same standard as what a video feed is today. We believe that creates a massive amount of opportunity in the advertising ecosystem, right? Like when you think about someone like Genius bringing you that technology as an agency and being able to leverage that across your full portfolio and taking that to your partners, like what are some of the opportunities that you think that unlocks in terms of sort of new inventory, new ways to interact with fans?
Yeah, I think this marks kind of a creative point for us in partnering with somebody that gives us the ability to do so. Obviously, we've done it with the ads front, kind of leading the way from our side, Publicis Media, with a lot of our clients. And now, knowing the importance of sports and where it's been and where it's going, we want to be able to create new inventory, and not only kind of create an inventory, but customizable inventory. I don't think nobody's been able to do that within the sports front. So I think that's kind of the importance from our side, really understanding kind of where this partnership can benefit both of us, but unlocking new things and thinking new ways. I think that's really important kind of on the brand side. Obviously, sports right now is very much crowded and fragmented, as we all know, but let's get creative out there with the types of inventory that we can create together, understanding what a fan wants and what a fan needs.
Yeah, and I'll just add on, the inventory you're describing is personalized and it's customized and it's built from the ground up and it is premium.
Yep.
And we are entering a new age of the internet where over the past several years there's been a tipping point and consumers are spending more time with premium content with the top 100 publishers than inside traditional walled gardens, Google, Meta. They're spending their time with premium content and they want premium, they want personalized, they want brand safe. I mean, that's critical. I know you guys are getting asked for that all the time. And when you think about real time, premium, customized, brand safe, you are describing sports. So to have the ecosystem and the technology to see the game like nobody else, know the fan down to the fan that orders the food or the fan that has high propensity to spend on wings, and then connect those two sides in a unique environment is just perfectly positioning Genius and our partners for this coming of a premium internet age where consumers are hungry for this kind of content.
Well, one thing I'd sort of say is, I think there's a common belief that young people aren't, sports fans, and that is categorically false. And this tech is really unlocking that across social, across creators, across alt broadcasts. We're seeing it across the board. And from our perspective, I think when the tech is in the hands of what we think of as our operators or people that operate in certain channels, they're starting to translate it for those channels, for those audiences. And that is huge, because at the end of the day, we're trying to meet the fan where they are, not necessarily recreate the broadcast. And today, sports is consumed. We were talking about this last night. You open up The Athletic on a Monday morning, it's better than Sports Center used to be, because you're getting the highlights and everything in there and the breakdown of it, and the GIFs themselves are some of the assets, and you see some of the stuff with the mesh. My gosh, if you're a Madden fan and you grew up on Madden, why would you watch football any other way?
Totally agree.
Yeah, and so on that point, Sam, I'm going to make my kids suffer with me and as a Jets fan, so they're going to be brought up sports fan too. But I just want to add one thing more, going back to premium and basically what both of you said. Premium, we want to determine what premium looks like too. One thing that we're looking forward to is looking at the betting data and kind of where those spikes are, so determine where people are interacting a little bit more than usual, where the games are getting close, where the interests are, so they would create a little bit more customizable premium inventory, but aligns with kind of what Gina mentioned. So great.
It's interesting what you touched on there with betting data, right? Like, obviously Genius is tracking all the financial transactions that are going on across sports fans, but when it comes in particular to betting data, betting transactions, understanding the value of a betting consumer, like, as an agency, when you think about that as a data set you can pull in, like, how valuable is that to you?
We've been doing that, by the way. We have one client in particular, who is pretty leaned in on sports and betting, and we've made a ton of our placements based on that, and based on the volume, the velocity of the betting data. And some of it is that we know that means that game is going to have attention, and it matters. And so that, by the way, it's a massively interesting data set, I dare say it's not Nielsen, but it tells you, it's very predictive of the outcome of a broadcast to a large extent.
Yeah, agreed. I think it gives us a fuller idea of a fan graph that we want, right? So, this is what a friend would say. I'm not a big bettor, but you could see where I tend to go, which is tennis, football, and soccer. But it also builds out that kind of fan profile that's needed in order to kind of try to predict or try to get a better idea of where an ad should be placed, or who those ads should go to, depending on kind of what sports you're into, or what last-minute interest or last-minute parlays you're trying to put in there. So,
yeah.
Great, and we're coming up on time, so maybe one last question for each of you. How, as we look to 2030 and beyond, right, how does the agency's relationship in sports evolve as you have more brands coming to you looking to tap into the sports fan base? Where do you see it going?
Well, look, it's interesting. I think the biggest piece for us, the biggest transformation is moving from static data sets to, what I'll call actionable, identifiable kind of data sets. And I think as we move along, sports to me, we've seen year-on-year growth in just about every, major sport. It commands so much attention. It's going to be at the heart of the planning and the buying and the measurement process from here on out. And for me, what's really interesting, and this is the conversations that Gina and I've had for the last couple of years, is we may start with the end point, which is who your consumers are, and back into the fandom. And you might find that the fandom for pickleball, the fandom for women's sports, the fandom for a lot of sports that may not have the broadcast audiences, but may have massive fan appeal, drive incredible amount of transactions, large AOVs. That to me, that's the piece that I see going forward, is that it will be the connector to find those passion points and potentially find emerging trends as they occur.
Yeah, I think agencies are going to set up performance buying teams for buying sports, whereas traditionally that would live kind of completely with the sports and entertainment and the sponsorship teams. They're going to have the measurement, the attribution, the data, the insights to deploy that sponsorship capital in meaningful ways to drive actual performance of their business, and that's a different model than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, spot on. Last note for me, it's relationship of the fan and team. More emphasis is going to be put on that, understanding where that lies, how it happened, how it's moving, and where it's going. That's kind of where we're focusing on from an agency point of view.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.